And welcome to Music Technology Online. My name is Dan Krischer, and in this segment we're going to be talking about sharing sounds between projects, how to export data that's contained in a project in the Jupyter-80 and back it up to a USB flash drive, and then also how to import data from a backup from a USB flash drive into another Jupyter-80 or another Jupyter-80 project. And we're going to use the internal Librarian function that's part of the Jupyter-80. You can see a screen of the export function to my left, and the steps themselves are very simple to do. And the great thing is that when you do this function, it thinks for you. So if you're exporting a registration or a group of registrations, keep in mind a registration contains live sets and tones. So if you choose to export or copy a registration to a USB flash drive, it also copies all the live sets, all the tones that are part of that registration for you. You don't have to individually go and mark all that data. But you also do have the option of being able to export individual live sets or tones if you need to do that as well. And one thing I want to suggest is it's always a good idea to back up your work before you do any process like this to a USB flash drive first. The steps themselves, they're very simple to do. And again, they're going to be found in the system menu. So let's switch over to our Jupyter. Here we're at the new version 2.0 registration play screen. I'll press menu and I'll touch the next key, touch export, and here I am at the export display. And so let's choose we'll choose a registration to export, and I'm going to choose the registration that's called Neo Jupyter. And as you see at the bottom of the display here, I've got the choice of either exporting a registration or live sets or tones, and I can do a combination of those different types of data. You don't have to do just one registration at a time or one live set at a time. The next step that you want to take is you want to mark the registration, in this case, the one that's called Neo Jupyter. You want to mark that and add an asterisk to the left-hand side. That way, the Jupyter knows that that is the registration that you want to export. Next, we'll press the export button, and we get the option to name the export. And it's imperative that you give this a unique name. So in this case, I'm going to call this Neo Dan. And this name is basically just a reference. So when you copy this over to your USB flash drive, you will have a unique name for it to be able to reference. Cool thing is when you take and you import the data back into your Jupyter-80, it actually will import the original names, file names that you had originally saved with the project. So we're done. The export is complete, and what we can do next is press menu, go to import, and you'll see here Neo Dan. There is my registration, and that's been backed up or copied to my USB flash drive. You'll also see along the right side of the display, it will give you the information about that registration. It will show you the live sets that have been backed up and also the tones themselves. And with this specific registration, it's comprised of 7 tones. So that's quite a bit of data that was copied over. So I'm going to press select, and now I'm going to choose where I want to import that within the memory of the Jupyter itself. So very first thing I'm going to do is let's go over to registration, and let's make sure that that's marked. All right, and you'll notice that it says Neo Jupyter. As I mentioned, it's cool. It retains the original file name that you created in your project, and along the right-hand side, it verifies the number of live sets and tones that you're importing. And once we're ready to do the import, we press import, and it's going to pull up your project. And what the Jupyter-80 will do by default is it will, by default, take and find the next empty slot in where your registrations are kept, where the live sets are kept, and where the tones are kept to write that data. So I've chosen my first empty space here in my registration list. If I go to my live set list, same thing. I'll mark where I want to save my live sets, and then when I go to tones, those have actually already been marked for me. And I'm ready to perform the import. I press execute, and the data is written. Very cool thing about this process also is that if the registration itself also has a arpeggiation that you have imported into the Jupyter, and that's part of the registration, it will take, and it will also back that up or copy that as part of the project export. Okay, so our import's done, and we can go to the end of our list here, and there's our sound, Neo Jupyter, and it sounds like this. Really fantastic, really huge sound that's indicative of the JupyterR80. So that is how to import and export sounds in the JupyterR80. If you'd like more information about the JupyterR80, you can go to our website, which is www.music-technology-online.com. We also have a dedicated blog just for the JupyterR80, and that's called jupyter80.music-technology-online.com. We also offer instruction and workshops on a variety of Roland products, which you can find listed also on our website, including the new Jupyter 50, which will be released sometime at the early part of this summer. So again, I'm Dan Krischer with Music Technology Online. I want to thank you for watching this segment, and tune in for our next chapter on the JupyterR80.